small balls. Just say it out raw. Just say what
Hey, you guys, 6 women brought this into the water yesterday, okay?
What do we got? We got
Six women. It only took 6 women to bring it into the water yesterday, so you ought to be able to handle it.
So 6 guys, but we're older.
One more on here. Wait.
Or you gotta climb over. Or you gotta climb either way.
Why don't you come over your Marty on this, I think.
I can get more lifting on this.
Okay, all right. Okay, you ready? 1, 2,
Take it forward a little bit. Marty. Straight.
forward, never straight.
Okay, slow down a little bit.
All right, we're following you, Marty. Yeah.
Fresh oil
Well,
6, 2.
they did that a couple days ago and dried out, but it did go.
7.
Put it in feet first here, Marty.
We're going here?
Right down here. Do you want to go over here?
No, you're good.
Put it right here. Put it right down here. Not in the water yet. Nope, no water. But otherwise, I want to lead into this with what we did yesterday, so that everyone knows where we're at with this. This was kind of an idea that some guy on the island put in the head of a guy from Michigan, and we thought we'd say, be interested in to carve a dugout canoe. And if everyone knew all the pieces of it, and I hope we're going to be able to write it down, it had to do with people heading out and saying, oh, we were thinking about doing this, and someone in Bay Mills during Snow Snake says, we know this guy over here that has that piece and all these things. That kind of came together because someone from Red Lake called the Michigan people and says, we got some really beautiful shingwak, or white pine, at Red Lake that's been topped off by a storm. And so all kinds of things came together in a really weird way, an honest way and good way. All the pieces came together to begin bringing 2 very large, what were 5,000 pound white pine at Red Lake. They were cut down on 3 sides to 2,800. They came over on the ferry at 2,800 pounds. And this dugout over here now weighs about 120 pounds. So it's from 5,000 down to 120 pounds approximately. It took 3 or 4 weeks. Marty is strategic as heck on keeping all the odds and ends on the island together. Johnny was instrumental in engineering and consultation. Mike was wonderful with giving his information. Frank Sprague and Kevin Finney, who kind of headed up the engineering team, said without Johnny and Mike, the project would have taken twice as long, and who knows how it would have turned out. So everyone's still learning from each other. It was just a really neat experience. As far as we know, there has not been a dugout canoe produced on this island since 1854, when the treaty that was signed, where everyone left the island, and the depopulation from several thousand people, annual people, down to 128 year-round residents, a fraction of population compared to 1854. 1830s, 16,000 people are on this island. Something like 12,000 Chippewas, 2,000 other Indians, 1,000 traders, 541 mixed bloods. They had everything marked down, but there was 16,000 people on the island during the 1930s. After 1854, everyone left. They would have manufactured, there would have been a family or a clan or a group of people up on the north end, 500, 800, 1,000 people strong. That's where all the fish came from that fed Adena, Ohio, that fed Cahokia, Illinois. 4,000 years ago, 22,000 people living in Cahokia, Illinois relied on the North End fishing camp for all their whitefish and lake trout and whatever else they had. Or they had a camp up at International Falls where they got all their sturgeon from and sent it down to Cahokia, Illinois. So this area, I envision it like the World Trade Center. Pipe Mustache said, New Orleans is 3.5 to 6 weeks, depending on whether you can take first class, second class, third class, the bus, or hitchhike to New Orleans, down the Bad River and Chippewa over to the Mississippi. Canada is a couple of hours, 9 hours in a boat ride up on the North Shore, unless you want to take 4 or 5 days to walk around. There are artifacts from Micmac country on the East Coast, Nova Scotia, that are on the island. There are artifacts like huckleberry seeds and salmon bones on the island from Walla Walla, Washington on the Columbia River. This place was the World Trade Center for several thousand years until the road system was built, and it changed the entire economic system of the United States and Canada. So this hasn't been done for 100 and some years that we know of. And a lot of special things happened during the time down here. We had probably 200 people put their hands on this canoe, probably more. Kids, the chief of Manitoulin Island came here because he heard about the dugout canoe and showed up over there and brought a bunch of sweetgrass. There was people from California that showed up reading about this dugout canoe that brought gifts that have been on the island. We had people from all over looking at this project. And like I said, at one time they would have cranked these things out every, 1 or 2 a week. And they would have been all kinds of different sizes. Someone says, well, that dugout doesn't look the way that I saw a dugout canoe in the Museum National Geographic report. Why doesn't it look like that? And I says, look at the marina. Why aren't every one of those yachts exactly the same? No imagination? Okay. There wouldn't be any of these dugout canoes that would ever be exactly the same, because this thing has special things painted on the side that is a story about its creation, its existence, and its future. And it's got colors that are built in here. There's little things that are only a handful of people are going to be able to interpret them, because it's only the people who put them on there that can interpret them for you. I might have put a little black trim on here because I'm Bear Clan. That's why my talking stick here has a little black thing. Someone coming into the lodge is going to say he's using black. He's probably Bear Clan member. I am. And so, without talking for 4 hours, what I'd like to do is, having offered up tobacco to everyone, is to speak for that. I'm going to quick tell you what we did yesterday, so that's out of the way. We had a delegation of people from Red Lake Reservation, where my great-great-grandfather Joe Morrison resided. His half-brother John Morrison Jr. lived up on top of the hill by Mission Hill, where his mother-in-law and Eliza Morrison's mother is buried. Her name was Wabagia. She's buried up there with a whole bunch of Scottish half-breed Chippewa Episcopalian people on what I call the south end of a 5-acre burial ground that's been designated. The whole south end has burial grounds. All the burials that are at the Oshaga site where we're working on 5 acres are from 1695 until the present. All the mounds that are up on the golf course and the other areas that have been here for a long time really make up our Arlington Cemetery of leaders and people that have come to the island for 4,000 to 6,000 years. Yesterday we had a delegation of people from Red Lake visit here, and they wanted to sing a song, and so we split today's ceremony into 2 things. We're presenting its name today. What was being asked yesterday by the Red Lake delegation where that tree came from is they wanted to sing a song that a guy named Zach Early has not sung to a dugout canoe ever, and he wanted to sing that song. When Kevin Finney says there's a woman who recorded that song who's passed away, played it to me, I says, that's Tommy Stillday's song that he sang at Archie Moset's funeral and Marilyn Benton's funeral. Why was that song sung there is because it's part of the creation and migration story. And at some point in that storytelling, it talks about a dugout canoe and a birch bark canoe that was made here on the Apostle Islands. The Apostle Islands were the vehicle that held it up while it was made. That's a Winnebago story, and it's about 2 hours long during the winter. At least 2 hours long. My grandma would make it 4 hours long, so we were asleep by the time she was done with it. That was where, in the story, the original canoe was created, in the Apostle Islands. So Zach, who had learned this song from a woman named Anna Gibbs, who recorded it because she thought it would be lost, learned it from Tommy Stillday. And I was the scabewis, or the helper, at Archie and Marilyn's funeral, where I heard him sing that song, and I recognized him in that song rather than Anna, who was in the recording. I said, this sounds like Tommy Stillday. Whoa, she's the one who learned it from Tommy Stillday. Well, that makes sense. It talks about 4 times through, as most songs are. It has 4 stanzas or components. The first one says, my canoe is really cool. It just goes through the waves really easy. And then the second time you come around in it, it says, hey, my canoe has a really good relationship with all the underworld things that are in the water. And the third time through, it says, my canoe has a relationship with the sky world and everyone in creation, and the thunderbirds are looking down on it. And the last time it says, and I'm the one who made it. And so everyone that put their hands on this canoe that went up there was the second time on the north end where people cried. There was the guy from the marina in Duluth that came down there during the stone ceremony, putting the water in the canoe to stretch it out and boil the rocks, and the earth shakes and shatters around the canoe. You're sitting there and you can feel the sand shaking as that canoe is boiling, and everyone put their hands on it. And there was a guy that did a marina museum up in Duluth that got up and was given a feather, say a few words, and all he did was cry. I never thought I would ever see what I've read about, and it's twice as cool as it is to read about it. That's what's happened with this dugout on the island. It's brought people together from all over in a really, really neat way, and that's what we've always been looking for, is the ability to talk with each other about what happened on this island and how to safeguard it for the future, because our history and past is part of all of everybody's future, not just the indigenous community. Our future is together, or that's that. So that's what happened yesterday. It was really, really, really super cool. And at the end of that song, the women grabbed the canoe and put it in. The waves were 10 feet, on the east end. They went in and brought it back out. And that's all they needed to do. Anyone that thought they were going to get a sneak ride forgot that the other half of the ceremony is here. And it was rough, so they couldn't take the canoe in, but they took it into the water. That's a joining together of a canoe ceremony. It took the sky and the water and the tree itself to join together in that song and in that ceremony. Today what we're doing is we're giving it a name. And so I want to talk for that. There's someone who said when they cut this tree down at Red Lake, someone said they heard someone go, all right, from way out in the woods somewhere. That's all they said. Is it your imagination? Do you want to hear that, or did something happen? But they said that someone was so elated in the woods that that tree was going to be dug out, that right then and there, all right. And that's the aura. This tree knew what it wanted to be, and now it's joined with the water to live on. All its other relatives are going back to the earth and so forth. And so I wanted Frank to do 2 things. One, to talk about that feeling that goes into wood products that we use in our daily lives, from bowls to spoons to snow snakes to flutes, and to remind us a little bit about things that he's learned over the years, because there's a song in here probably for this canoe, I would suspect. Maybe there's a couple of them, this dugout. And so I'm going to hand it over to one of the oldest Anishinaabe man I know right at the moment. My elder, really old elder guy that wise and everything else. Unlike these Menominee guys, even though they got white hair. No. Frank, I asked Frank to come over and I gave him some tobacco to talk a little bit briefly before we put this on its maiden voyage. Miigwech.
No, bujun and dan may magin do. Anak ko din diyan pas, mas gabi ka na doon sa Paul calls me, you know, whenever he feels like he needs to talk to an old man, I guess. And you know what's great about being an old man is I can say I don't even remember what the heck he wants me to talk about. But we were out here with the dedication of that sculpture over there, Chief White Crane. And I must have talked for a long time because I can't remember half of what you picked up. You know, some people pick up certain things of that you're talking about, and sometimes people listen to them, and maybe 10 years down the line they say, "Oh, that's what he was trying to say." And when Paul was talking about the canoe, the only thing that went through my head at the time was what my mother used to say when I was a little boy, when she was frustrated up here, and we really didn't know what she was referring to at the time. But she used to say, "Sometimes I feel like that one that was trying to get across the lake on the log, and he'd go on there and he'd tip upside down until he figured out how to make this canoe." Because that's what that whole story that's told in the wintertime relates to, that dugout canoe. And the beginning of the story even about grabbing onto a log and trying to float out into the lake. And it keeps flipping over and you're under the water then and swim back to shore. And what she was telling us is that's what her life was feeling like sometimes, living back up in the woods here. But as a little boy, I spent a lot of time out in the woods. When I was born, and I tell people I was born up there in the woods in this small house, and eventually 13 children in the family in this little bitty house. And so we did spend a lot of time outside. There was no room in the house. We were outside until it got too cold, and then and at night it was come in the house when it was dark, because a lot of the critters that were around would come right up to the house and be on the front porch or whatever, you know. And so when I spent that time out there, like he referred to this voice out there in the woods that said, "All right." Before I get into my story, this story comes to me from one of my friends from up in Canada, a long ways up there, who was a Grand Medicine Chief. And he said when he was younger, he was sitting with one of the old people, and they told him of a medicine that grew on trees. And the old man that told him about that medicine said that has such a powerful spirit that sometimes it talks to you. And the old man, he said, took this kind of a burl out of his pocket, and he said, "I'll show you." And he rubbed it across the table. And when he rubbed it across the table, it screamed. A loud scream came out of this. And he said to the young man that related it to me, he said, "If you're ever out in the woods and you hear a voice," he said, it can holler, it can say, "Hey!" Or even that, "All right." He said, "Follow that sound, because you might be coming across one of these pieces of our culture here, this strong medicine. You might be coming across that, and you'll be fortunate if you're able to gather a piece of that, because it has a lot to do with some of the healing that we can, you know, help people with." He said, so he was out in the woods hunting, and it was up in the remote area up there around Thunder Bay, way back in the woods. Had his rifle and he was hunting, and he heard something. "Hey! Hey!" And he thought, is that spirit that lives on the tree? So he said he followed that. And it would holler once in a while, and he kept walking and walking, and he came on the top of this one hill, way out in the middle of the woods. And in the bottom of that hill was somebody in an orange suit, standing there. Hey, hey, he said. My heart fell down because I thought I had found this medicine. I was so disappointed. I went to this, down by this young man, and I said, yeah, can you help me? That man said, and he says, how do I get out of here? I'm lost. He said, and I was so disappointed. I said, look at the trees. The wind blows them. The wind is usually in this area mainly from the west, and the trees will be leaning away from the wind. He said, if you follow those trees, you should get out of here on the south side, or on the north side, or on the east side. And he turned around and left that young man out in the woods. He says, to this day, I don't know if the man ever found his way out, but I never found that medicine, he says. So you know, as we make a journey through our lives, and if we're fortunate enough to find different people that can relate these kind of experiences to us, it's a wonderful thing. And if we're out in that woods and we hear things talking, sometimes it can be those spirits in those trees. When I was younger and we lived in the city and I came up to visit someone, one of the people, and this was the time of those stupid tree huggers, you know, those hippies. and I said, this is a bunch of tree huggers. And this old man up on the res, he said, you know, the trees have a powerful spirit in them. They have the ability, because of how they grow so tall, they have the ability to send things back if they're negative things that you get in your life. He says you can put your ear, hug that tree and put your ear up against it until you feel that, and it'll suck that bad things right out of your ear through your electromagnetic energy field. Because the trees have electromagnetic energy fields also, because life is like that. Our spirit has this energy field, and a lot of people are able to see that. It's called your aura, or your electromagnetic energy field. And it sucks that out of you, and it sends it back out into the universe. So I went back to the city, and I said, I wonder if this is really true. And I walked down to this park in the middle of the city. And I went up to that tree, and I put my arms around it, and I'm in this tree. And all these people around were looking at me like I was crazy. And I'd take my hands away and wait till people weren't around, and I'd start hugging that tree again. But you know, after I got over that feeling, and I went and I hugged those trees, it was great, because they did take those bad feelings out of me. And why did those people start doing that? They were told that story way back. You know? They were told about that. And they became these people that were known as tree huggers. And why do people always do those stupid things, you know? And then as I sat out there in the woods a lot of times, I would hear a lot of things, because I was attempting to find, through my life at different times, attempting to find out what my purpose was here. What is my purpose? Why am I here? And you know, as people started to call me to go and talk in prisons and treatment centers and all these different, in colleges, can you come and do a talk with us? I says, why do you want me? I never went to college. I didn't even graduate high school. I studied electronics. I learned about electromagnetic energy fields. I built lasers. I built all these different things. when I was, working in factories and stuff. But I never went to college. Even in my music was there when I was a little boy. I would sit outside down by the stream and watch those bugs skate across the water. And I said, I wonder if that old man that told me this I wonder if that's true. Do we as humans have the ability, like those other spirits here, do we have the ability to talk without using sound? Can we send signals from our mind to those other spirits that are around us, those other entities that are there? And we had a dog at the time. It was named Skippy. And the dog would sit across the yard from me, and I would attempt to do that. I would sit there and I would think, Ambioma. Animush, Ambioma. In my mind, I'm thinking this, and I'm thinking real hard. Yeah, pretty soon, you know what that dog would do? He'd open up his eyes like that, and he'd come running over and he'd start licking my hand. And I said, oh, that is true. We can do that. And that old man that said, be careful how you're thinking, because look at the clouds. Look at the sky. It shows and it reflects all of your feelings. So I got a job in a factory, and I said, I'm going to go in this factory here, and I'm going to see if this works with people too. So this one morning I went to the factory and I punched in, and all the other people are saying, well, good morning, Frank, how are you? And I said, what the hell's so good about it? Damn clouds are outside there, it's going to rain, and my leg is hurting, and I feel like crap. And I went over to my machine and started working, and I watched people, and throughout the day, everybody in the factory was mad and in the same mood, and I said, did I do that? And the next day I went in and punched in, and they said, good morning, Frank. And I said, good morning, it's a beautiful day. It's a wonderful to be alive. And everybody in the place was in a good mood by the end of the day. So what it teaches you is that we have to be careful with our thoughts and how we live our lives. And we have to get up every morning and sit up in our bed. No matter what the situation is, we have to say, thank you. Thank you, Creator, Great Spirit. What am I supposed to do today? And when I learned how to do this here, it came from sitting out in the woods. And even in the voice of one of the old people, you got to start doing that. You got to start doing this. You got to start using those things at different parts of my life. You got to start using that tobacco. I said, what's that? That's how you talk. He said, if you're out in the woods and you see something, or you need to gather a plant or whatever, he said, talk to the spirit of that plant. And if you don't have this tobacco, sema, that stuff, he said, what does a sema mean? I said, tobacco. He said, no. It means put it there. He said, when you get something, this is telling you, put something there and ask permission. So if you start doing that regularly, it changes everything. It changes all this around. It changes the plant that you're gathering. Not only the physical part of it comes, but the spiritual part of it comes with that, and it becomes what's called medicine. If you keep thinking you're sick, you're going to be sick, because your mind does that. It can cause you to be sick. It can cause the clouds to cover the sun and make things look the way you feel. When the world got sick just recently, the spirit came into my dream and said, it's going to get worse. I said, why? Why? And the spirit said, because we have forgotten how to show our love for all creation. We have even forgotten how to show our love for each other. He said things are going to get worse. And that's when this COVID thing started and stuff. And he said, here's a song I want you to sing, he said. I want you to sing this as many times as you can. And all it says is, I love you all and my relatives. And people interpret in our Ojibwe language, sometimes people are real critical about how you say things. But let's face it, none of us are really perfect. We say it as best as we can, and the spirits understand you. They know what you're speaking from here, from your heart. So the song just goes, throughout the song. The whole song is there. And that says it all. And, looking at these different parts of our native way and stuff. And other people, too, that are artists sometimes tell you that. They say, this piece of wood spoke to me. It helps me to understand what they want me to do with it. Someone said I have a number of guitars in my basement, in my music room, and they said, well, how do you decide which one to pick when you're going to go out and perform? I said, well, I walk in the room and I listen, and I hear all these voices. If I tell this to too many people, you know where I'll be? In a nut house. I said, these instruments are saying, pick me, pick me, pick me, pick me. And I have to go around and I have to decide which one wants to come and be a part of what I'm doing at the time. The same as the flutes. When I'm making the flutes, one of the old people said, first of all, I'll tell you the physical dimensions of the flute. I was curious when the old man told me I needed to make one of these. I said, how big do I make it? He said, like that. I said, how do I know how long to make it? He said, put your arm on there like this. He says, and if you're making it for yourself, and then this one spread of your hand is the length of your flute. I said, well, if I'm digging the inside of it out, I split it in half, And he says, I said, how do I know how big it's supposed to be inside? He said, take the two halves and hold them together like that, stick your finger in there like that, and when it goes up to that joint, that's big enough. And I said, well, if there's a part here there's a solid part in these flutes right here, because there's a chamber and the air comes up and it hits this bird and it goes forward and hits the sound lip on the front part. I said, how far from the back is that supposed to be? He said, put your hand on there like that. That's where it is. So he said a long time ago they didn't use rollers. That's how they did it. When they learned, and the stories even go all the way back to a woodpecker teaching them how to make the thing. And you think, well, how can a woodpecker teach you how to make this? Because they're not humans. Us humans are superior, right? We're smart. We know every dang thing, right? We even know that there's a heaven and a hell, and if you don't behave, you'll burn in that place down there. I think. Right, Paul? But what's important when they said, when you're making that thing, referring to that, referring to a dugout and a drum, when you're making those things, have good thoughts. Have good thoughts. And I said, why? I can still carve if I'm thinking crappy stuff. He said, no. Because through that electromagnetic energy field, if you're touching that piece of wood and you're having bad thoughts, you might put that in that drum or in that flute or in that canoe or any of those things. He said, if you start having bad thoughts, get up and walk away and wait and come back. Take your time, don't rush. And when you put those good thoughts in there, then it can be something that's good and it can help the people that hear the sounds or whatever. It's an important part of it. And even to look at the piece of wood, and make a flute or make a drum or whatever, and don't rush and try to dream, you know, and ask for help and say, send me the message, please. You know, I want to know what I need to do. How do I need to decorate it? What does it want to be? Because they said that wood is alive. All these things that we look at here, this stick here, this is life. This is alive. I said there's spirits in there. That one spirit that came to me said, you use the word all the time when you're traveling around, talking with people. This was my grandmother, who I never seen. She come there and she says, in this vision, she said, you're using this word, and I really feel good that you're doing this. You use this one word, and I want you to tell me in your own word. Can you tell me what that word means? And she said, this word. I said, what is it? And she said, respect. What does it mean? And I stood in front of my grandmother there in that dream, and I was ready to start crying like my grandma was scolding me. I said, I don't know. I don't know what it means. And she said, that's all right, I came here to show you. And she said, see that stick over there? Pick it up. She said, pick that stick up. She said, what do you see? I said, I see a piece of wood from a tree that was alive once. And she said, no, no. And when she pointed at it, I could see life in there. It was alive. And she said, no, look up above you up there. What do you see up there? I said, I see clouds. I see, you know, different planets, you know. And she said, no. And she pointed up there, and I could see life. Even the air that was moving around was alive. And all these clouds and all these things, this is all alive. And she said, no, no, look at your hand. What do you see there? I said, I see veins and blood and skin. And she did that, pointed at that too. And this was all life moving around, all little life things moving around. She said, the trouble with us here, the people when they're born here, she said, the Creator told me to come and show you this. We forget that everything is alive. And we forget to acknowledge it. She said, all these things are full of life, even though they don't look like it. I said, what if I just stand here in this spot here and they don't move? Because she said, if you step on a blade of grass, you're changing the universe. You're changing that circle. I said, I'm just going to stand one spot and move. She said, don't matter. You're breathing. And every time you take a breath, you're changing the universe. Because you're part of that circle of life, no matter what you do. She said, and that's what that word, respect, is about. Changing the universe. Because that's what we are. All of us, everything. Every time we do things, we change the universe. So those are the kind of things that, after a lot of years, that come into a person's experience as being alive that long. And I've been with, of course, our Grand Medicine Lodge 40-some years. And all these things are things that we think about a lot. And as we get older, we don't have nothing else to do, right? We sit around and think. Right?
Aha.
At least that's what people say. They told, I traveled around a lot through my life and performed. And I told one lady at Chautauqua, I think I'm becoming invisible. She said, don't say that. I said, well, it's a thought that a lot of us as we get older come to. We think we're invisible because our children are teaching us things that we taught them. So what we're trying to show you here is all these things, that canoe and these other things that are parts of our culture, parts of our life, things that came through centuries of time here, are all here right now. And our way is of teaching is that when you move forward, you can look at the past, but don't keep living there. You use it to learn about what we are and what we were. And we use that as part of our life experience. You know, someone that you maybe tried to teach something to, even in a school teaching sense, and you go home frustrated and say, those damn kids don't listen to me. And 10 years down the line, you see that child somewhere and they're doing what you tried to teach them. Right. Because it registers up here in our brain. And when it goes right back to the teaching about birth and life and the soft spot on our head. And what happens when a child starts to grow inside of its mother. The mother is connected, and my little granddaughter, great-granddaughter this morning, for some reason, brought this up to me. She wanted to go in the bathroom. And her belly button is showing here, and she said, Grandpa, is this where I was connected with my mother? I said, yeah. She said, do you have one of those? And I said, yeah, I got one. Well, were you connected to somebody? Yeah, I was connected to my mother. Is everybody connected to their mothers like that? I said, when you first are growing inside of your mother, yes, that's where you are connected. That's what keeps you alive. And in that teaching says that our mother keeps us alive when we're inside of the womb. And they said, be careful when you're talking in front of that child, that mother with a child, because the child can't understand it. And sometimes that causes the child not to want to be here. And when that child is inside of the mother until after they're born, until the soft spot is closed, and they sleep a lot all the time, they're not really there. The spirit is gone. The spirit is sitting with the Creator, and they're deciding what that child is going to do in their life if they come here. And if you talk bad things in front of the mother, maybe the child they'll have a miscarriage. The child don't want to be here then. So they said, be careful. And say good things and teach good things. And when that child grows, then they've already been told what their job here is supposed to be, or what they agreed to do. And a long time ago, we had to go sit out in the woods and fast. When we turned get around the age of puberty, especially, it was to find out what we're supposed to be doing in this life. And that was the ceremony that was done. So you'd sit out and deprive your body of food or water, and I've done that a number of times, and I still don't know what I'm supposed to do. he's sitting over there like this. Like the Chautauqua people. Stop. Says, somebody said a while ago, geez, I got you down for 2 hours. I hope that's not too long. 81 years and you want to give me only 2 hours? It is true, because one of all the little things that come to you through these different people and these different teachings are stories. In order for people to understand that, they come in stories. The old man is sitting on his porch. He's looking at this tree out in his yard, and his grandson comes over and he says, "Hi, Grandpa." He says, "Hi, grandson." He said, "Grandpa, what are you doing?" And the grandpa says, "I'm looking at that tree." He said, "No, what are you doing?" He said, "I'm looking at that tree." And the grandson said, "I don't understand. You got to be thinking something, doing something." He said, I'm looking at that tree and I'm trying to think about that tree at the same time. He said, because every time we're in a group like this, every one of you out there is somewhere else in your mind. Because human nature is kind of ballistic in a sense. If we let our brain do it, it devours us. So we have to look at a tree and see a tree in our mind. Instead of thinking about what you're going to do in 5 minutes or an hour or 2 hours from now while I'm telling you this story. Or you're sitting there thinking about a better story you can relate to me. How can I top that one, right? That's us as humans, because we're so perfect. At least we try to think that way sometimes. But we aren't. You know, we're all humans, and we're no better than any of these other creatures that are around. You know, and we need to start thinking about that, and we need to start saying I love you. And the men need to stop saying I love you, man, with one arm. Say I love you. Right? I love you,
Yes.
Paul.
Okay, then. Get some butter and butter them up next.
Fist hug. But that's I don't know if he filled me in on what I was supposed to say, but he warned me about this. But I'm older than him, so. And I was in martial arts in my 30s. But I seen some very disheartening news lately on the internet. Martial arts is nothing.
Oh.
We'll teach you how to take care of somebody that says they're in martial arts. It's just, I don't know what it's about, but I'm not going to look at it. But I'm going to, if I can if my flute wants to play, I'll play a flute song, and then we'll what else have you got on here? When are we going to
I
eat?
just got the announcement of the name, and in the water we go for maiden voyage. So
Yeah, well, it's clearing up again. See, they're happy. All you people changed your thoughts a little bit. But hey, you know, my name is Anakwad, so when I flew to all these other countries, I wasn't afraid to be up there. I loved it. It's like I got a window seat. And I said, bonjour, bonjour, it's good to see you. All those clouds, because that's, Anakwad is the cloud. And so,
kept trying to open his
it's all my
window and
relatives
get
up there. Just a bunch of clouds.
Kept trying to open his window.
You
to
know what
get
clouds
out.
are? A bunch of hot air. Right? Anyhow, this flute is about 30-some years old. 30, 40, I don't know. I got the date here somewhere. It's made out of redwood. I was told by one of the old people I needed to make one out of redwood. And so I made this, and it was so thin that I said, it's going to break. I better not keep it, you know. But then I heard that voice, and I wanted to be there, and I've made 8 recordings that have sold pretty well. One of them was in Shopko stores, 2 of them actually. And one of them sold like, it was Spirit Sings It was called. I think there may be some around available yet, but it was Nature Sounds and flute. And sold 250,000 copies. And the people at the place that signed me, they got rich. The man bought an island and he sold the business. Yeah.
Ever invite you to the island?
No.
You could see the result of your royalties.
No, and then he sold it to somebody that filed bankruptcy in 2 years. And I lost. That's okay. I'm still okay with the whole thing. In our Ojibwe language is Ipiguan. Ipiguan is the name of the flute. So I want to play you a song, and then I'm going to go over to Grandpa Tony's and eat a pizza. After I push Paul out in that boat there, watch him paddle across the bay. Are you going to paddle out there?
We will put some out people out there, yeah.
Yeah.
We can paddle around.
You know, all those parts of that, the manufacture of that boat and the object, and I don't know if you made those too, but the paddles and stuff. You know, the paddles are in the shape of a beaver's tail, and that whole story Tom or Paul referred to, that's told in the wintertime, tells you why that's like that. And it's really an interesting, story. So you have those type of paddles that are.
We've got some paddles
Yeah.
over there that are pretty old style.
Yeah. Oh. So that's, those are some of the things that would come later on, and so I'm gonna finish by playing this flute for you.
Kenen denoi magna duk mino dasha kenamani dono nogu gizigata oshke Vetigo jiban jini kazo winungun oshke jini kazo winin Gitchigaming money do wit Gitchigaming money do wit. Repeat after me. Gitchigaming money do wit. Gitchigaming money do wit. That's the name that's been presented to the spirits out here. Gitchigaming money do wit. In the spirit of Lake Superior is its name. It's the name of the dugout. Gitchigaming is the big lake. Manituwit is in a spiritual way thinking about something personal. And so that's the name of this new dugout. Gitchigaming Manituwit. We don't print the names on like boats and ferries and so forth do, but the name is actually painted in on the canoe in the design work. So, Gitchigaming money do it. So now,
Johnny.
well,
Mike.
Paul and Marty. Paul has to go in first.
Johnny and Mike afterwards, or what do you
You want
think?
to go first? We'll go first. You want to go at the bank? Here, I'm going to give you. It's in the middle. It's in the middle. Gracie, I'll brace it. Yep, I'll brace it. I'm going in. Yep, go ahead. I'll brace you in the water. gonna walk on this one. Ooh, what's that? Spin to the right. We're going. In. Hard in, hard in. Oh, look out.
Nice.
Johnny.
Yeah. Not a whole lot of freeboard. That's the whole right, it won't sink it. Yeah, it could, even with another person now, if you have a small person inside,
Getting the stern?
it would be riding good.
Yeah, I probably can.
All right.
Let's see. There you go. Sit back a little more. There you go. Let her go.
Almost there.
There you
Yeah.
If you could get in, we'll get you out.
Okay. That time I had to get hauled out of a kayak. How'd that go?
All right,
I got all wet. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right.
Okay.
You want a little bigger paddle, Tony?
No, this will work.
Yep. Uh-huh, yes, you do.
There you are now.
Oh.
Bring up the wolf.
Taking it to Green Bay.
Hide your women and your commodity cheese. The Monomies have come.
I get to sit on this cushion.
Yeah, you get to, that we saved it for you.
Oh my God.
There we
Look at him. My paddle. You don't know. You can charge the other way. You don't have to eat at me.
Uh-huh. I got it. There we go.
Aw.
Everybody got their blade.
Frank. Huh? Stop tipping it, Frank.
Okay, I'll stop this.
Don't do it, Frank. Don't do it. Don't do it. Going back.
Get me home. Take me home.